focus today really isn't the fact that it earned of $1.12. The focus is the future when it comes to autonomous drive technology, rideshare platforms. What does GM do in self-driving vehicle, one of the test vehicles out in San Francisco? On the conference call today, the company said it's making progress when it comes to self-driving cars. It's evaluating markets around the world for future services. And CEO Mary Barra says they're keeping their options open in terms of what happens next.
We very much believe we want to maintain the relationship with the customer, and so, we're exploring many options, and we could partner with someone, partner with many, or work on our own.
As you take a look at shares of General Motors, Mary Barra also mentioned that they are evaluating acquisition opportunities. No indication if we'll see one anytime soon. But compare the optimism for General Motors with what we're seeing for Fiat Chrysler. There's plenty of optimism there for shares of FCAU, but Sergio Marchionne, during the company's conference call, was asked point blank about all of the optimism for the automakers when it comes to self-driving cars. Guys, he said it very succinctly, don't believe the fluff. He went on to say it's going to take a long time and a lot of investment before the industry and these tech companies know how this will play out. That's something to keep in mind as you see these auto stocks move higher on the possibility of something paying off when it comes to self-driving cars.
All right, Phil LeBeau, Phil, thank you very much. We got to go because you got some breaking news out of Washington with regard to tax reform. Let's head right now to Ilan Mouie. Ilan.
Brian, House Republicans have set a date for the release of their tax bill. It will be November 1st. That's according to a source on Capitol Hill. Now, Republicans have said they would not release their tax plan until a budget is passed. The House is scheduled to vote on that budget on Thursday, so they're assuming that this is going to just sail right through without any opposition from the conservative wing of the Republican Party, and that will allow them to release their tax plan in less than a week after that budget is passed. Earlier this morning, House Speaker Paul Ryan, President's leadership on this issue, even as President Trump arrives here on Capitol Hill for a lunch with Republican senators that is expected to be very contentious. But a date now for that tax bill, November 1st. Back to you.
Yep, step by step. All right, thank you, Elon. Now, another news alert. Julia Borston standing by for that. Julia.
Hey, that's right. Hulu announcing that its CEO, Mike Hopkins, is stepping down. He is now becoming the head of Sony Pictures Entertainment, Sony Pictures Television. So you have Hulu CEO going over to Sony Pictures Entertainment Television. Now, Hulu's new CEO is Randy Freer. Freer had been on the Hulu board of directors. He has been president and CEO of Fox Networks Group since 2013. So under Mike Hopkins' tenure, Hulu has invested more in original content, making its own shows such as The Mindy Project. They had some success with The Handmaid's Tale, and now they're passing the reins to another television executive. Guys, back over to you.
Julia, thank you very much. Well, even as the market roars to record levels yet again, BlackRock's chairman and CEO Larry Fink warns investors not to get used to this year's kind of outsized returns. Listen to what he told Andrew Ross Sorkin this morning on Squawk.
BlackRock Investor Institute came out with a 10-year forecast of 4%.
4%.
That's that was with a balanced portfolio. That's how low it is. Now, I tend to think it's going to be probably closer to 6%, but it's not going to be what we saw 8 or 10 or 12% anymore. I'm talking about a balanced portfolio for a pension fund.
So is Larry Fink right? Let's ask Ron Wiener, President and CEO with RCI Financial Group, and Joe Duran, founder and CEO of United Capital. Ron, does Larry's forecast sound right to you or too low?
Well, if you're just thinking the U.S. and you're thinking a balanced portfolio, which in our world, mine and Joe's world, that's 60-40, yeah, I think that could be so, but I think it's more because of the bonds than the stocks. I just saw Leon just in the hallway here, and he stole some of my thunder where bonds are the bubble, and I've been saying that highly with you for a while. The bonds are the problem, not stocks. I mean, global growth, we're bullish on the world. Our major thing for years and years is that we don't hear about Caterpillar taking share from Deere. They're both adding to sales because of the global growth. So as long as the world keeps growing, these companies, including Boeing, including Apple, they just have more clients and more customers. So we're bullish on that, but a rising interest rate, that especially in some kind of pool bond account, we've seen the best of those days.
So, Joe, is Ron right? Address the overall issue, whether you think a 4% return in a balanced portfolio is a reasonable expectation over the next, say, half decade. And is Ron right, and has he nailed the point here, which is that the sandbag is bonds, not stocks?
No, I guess he's right about bonds, but I think he maybe the equity story, we just have to hold things in context. And if you look back at the last 10 years, which included the Great Recession, stocks have delivered in the S&P 500. What's been the anchor has been the fact that fixed income has actually helped you because we had a higher interest rate. We're now on the 10-year at about 2.5%. It's very hard to get to 10 or 12%. With 40% of your portfolio has a 2.5% return. I think we're at 2.4 now on the 10-year. So you're expecting a lot of carry.
The total return but the total return, I think Ron's point is that the total return could be less than the yield if interest rates go up.
Of course. But let's assume you own the underlying bonds for the full 10 years. You're going to get the 2.4%. Now the equity side, you've got two things that are going to drive the future, which is our current starting point valuations and is the growth underlying going forward. Now, at the valuations we're at, by every measure, we're in the top 20% of valuations. It's very hard to grow to keep up without some setbacks along the way. So I think there is nothing wrong with the average investor anticipating a 4%. If we do better, great. But they should look at the portfolios and the equities. I completely agree that the growth comes from global investing. And you can do that with the S&P 500 because most of the companies have operations offshore. But you should be assessing your own risk and make sure you can withstand what will no doubt be some setbacks along the way. We've had an incredible run with very little volatility. That's unlikely to be the case for the next 10 years.
Ron, you get the last word.
Sure. Well, if you remember, Tyler, we once talked to you and I about us thinking that Alibaba was Amazon on steroids. So Alibaba makes a deal with Marriott because in the next 10 years, the biggest travelers in the world will be the Chinese. So yeah, American companies will do well. Other companies, foreign companies will do well because the world's growing. The middle class is growing. So it's a bullish world. In stocks, you got to pick your sectors. You can't just be benign and you can't just do indexes. For sure, you got to be astute. But we think that stocks still have a way to go for decades.
Gentlemen, thanks very much, Ron Wiener, Joe Duran. Appreciate it.
President Trump and Senator Bob Corker in a war of words this morning. Why is the president picking a fight with a crucial Republican senator at the same time that he's trying to get tax reform passed? Power Lunch will be right back.
Mechanized infantry. Tip of the spear.
What is
Infinite life.
PR low?
Headlines breaking moments ago. The House GOP will reveal a tax bill November 1st. This comes as President Trump and Senator Corker are doing a power lunch right now with other senators to try to get tax reform over the finish line. Big question, though, in light of recent events. The latest feud between Trump and Corker breaking out on Twitter again this morning. Is this going to crush any chance of reform? Let's bring in CNBC contributor Larry Kudlow. Larry, good to have you here, as always.
Thank you.
He needs every vote he can get on tax reform. Senator Bob Corker is not running for re-election. When you're not running for re-election as a member of Congress, your calculus can change dramatically. Is it possible that he, God, I hate to sound crass, pisses off Corker so much that he loses his vote, that he threatened this whole thing? I think to McCain, not voting for health care reform. And I wonder if something mean to McCain is part of that Corker may not.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. I think that, look, Corker doesn't like Trump. Trump doesn't like Corker. I'm tempted to say it's, what's the phrase? It's down in fury, but must do around that. Let's signify nothing. That was Shakespeare. I hope I got that right. But I don't think it's going to matter for the vote. I doubt it very, very, very much. The letting off steam. I don't know why it continues. I don't get it. I don't know. So remember John McCain was asked the same thing. Basically, do you hate the president enough that you would do something you would normally do just to spite him? And I think his answer to that reporter was, that's a dumb question. You think Corker ultimately goes with his GOP head and maybe not his anti-Trump heart? I think the GOP head is right. Look, John McCain, good, right? He's against the health care. It surprised a lot of people, but he did vote for the budget. He did vote for the Senate budget resolution. So I think at the end of the day...
So let me ask you this. The really important question for me is Bob Corker going to take a knee when they serve the appetizers? That's what I want to see.
Well, reading one of the clips asked him if he was going to the Trump lunch today, and Corker said, well, it's my lunch. Was that right? Was it his lunch? I'm just quoting one of the news.
Have you seen the rally in the industrial today? Since I leave yesterday, so I've seen this too, but a large portion of this is because of Donald Trump. What do you think is driving this rally? Is it earnings? I'm going to focus on earnings historically. Always. The numbers are good.
Profit to the mother's milk and stock, and I still think that's the biggest case. But you go through cycles. We're going through a cycle now, political cycle, that makes the Trump tax cuts look very doable. Okay, very doable. And I think that's great. However, I would have a caution here. Okay, there's an issue. I'm hearing stuff from the House leadership that I don't like. I'm hearing, for example, they may not use a 3% growth baseline, which is worth several $1 billion, but they will use a joint tax committee baseline, which will mean no dynamic scoring will cost them a fortune. Frankly, they can't have that. They're going to have the JCT, the joint, but they can't do that. Because that's exactly what they're doing. That makes it impossible. Well, there's a hand grenade in the room and runs off. I couldn't agree more. And it's one of the things, Kevin Brady, the Ways and Means Chairman, mentioned it last week. Now, I don't know how insistent or what, but as a process issue, you're exactly right. It blows a hole in the entire story. And we really don't yet know about the CBO. Are they going to be beholden to the CBO scoring, which is going to blow another hole, or not? The only way they can get this done, first I admit it, is a 3% growth path, which is worth against the CBO $2.5 to $3 trillion in revenue. That's the mother of all pay-fors. Without that, they cannot do it, and they really need to clarify that.
They cannot do it and stick to the $1.5 trillion in the budget resolution.
Yeah, I mean, somebody was calculating if they go with CBO and Joint Tax Committee, the corporate tax might be 28% or higher. That's just not acceptable.
Let's talk state and local tax deductions, because we were talking about it off camera there. I want to understand clearly whether you expect the bill that comes out on now November 1st to exclude the ability of individuals to write off not just their state and local income tax, but their local property tax as well. That would inflame a lot of people. They'll go crazy. And the realtors will go crazy.
And listen, property tax. I mean, I'm at a high property tax.
And property values will go
in a high
down.
Property tax state. That
And the 5.3 trillion in stock market returns that the president was talking about, that will be lost in the capital.
Yes. First of all, I don't like any of this.
In the house value.
I don't like any of this. All I want to do is cut business taxes and grow the economy at 3%. I don't like any of this. This is not really a tax reform bill like 1986.
No.
This is a growth and jobs and productivity and wages bill. But having said that, if they go down that path, it's called SALT, they will fence off the property taxes. Otherwise, they just couldn't possibly do it. Couldn't possibly do it. And before you kick me out of here, can I just raise one point?
Sure.
This story in the Journal, Mike Pence interviewed Kevin Warsh as a potential Fed chairman. That elevates the Warsh story. Doesn't clinch. But Pence is Trump's closest advisor. Really. I don't think people appreciate the extent of that. And Pence has seen Warsh, he's seen John Taylor, and he's seen Jay Powell. He hasn't seen, I guess he didn't see Yellen. Of course, the president did. I'm just saying that Warsh's name seemed to be lagging. I would put Warsh back into the first tier just because Vice President Pence saw him. Other than that, I have no information that's going to come out of Mr. Trump's head.
Good insight, though. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Larry Kudlow.
All right, shares of Whirlpool are leaving investors feeling a bit sunk today. They are down over 10%. We are going to tell you why. And after a number of very tough years for brick and mortar retailing, are we finally, actually, sort of, kind of, near the bottom for retail, or is there more pain in store? We'll find out. Power Lunch returns right after this.
Get out the way, people.
They're gone. Fire break down. Shoot it. Assault through. Shut out. That's a kill. Thermite time! Fire break.
Oh shit.
Threat neutralized.
Today's Power Rundown focuses on retail, and there are three big topics to hit with Courtney Reagan, who is live at the Women's Wear Daily CEO Summit. A bunch of big names from fashion and retail are there. And Courtney, big interview you caught with the chairman of Saks and Lord & Taylor parent company, Hudson Bay.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. So a lot of talk here at this conference.
People, get out the fucking way, you fucking idiots.
Because a lot of the folks that are here are involved in some way. Maybe their brand sells on those department stores or websites. And we caught up with the chairman of Hudson's Bay Company, Richard Baker, because he was a last-minute addition here after the news today of the sale of the Lord & Taylor flagship for $850 million. Take a listen.
Drives in a tremendous amount of cash. It allows us to pay down 1.6
Turn around,
billion
idiots.
debt,
Fuck.
leave us at the end of the transaction with approximately $385 million cash. This sets us up to be really strong financially going forward as we execute what's really a difficult retail environment.
But he wouldn't say that they've been more nimble and able to take the company private because there's been reports that that's what he's interested in. But a lot of talk today about the future of Safari.
Next up, would this be the year that online shopping during the holidays passes in-store sales?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. There was a new survey out today from Deloitte, and they spoke to almost 5,100 different consumers, and more than half, for the first time, said that they'll spend more money online this holiday season than they will in stores. I think the breakdown was 51% to 42%. Last year, it was evenly split. The higher income earners actually said that they'll spend even more. And that's interesting because, Brian, you and I talk about this a lot. And we know that the government data shows that somewhere between 85 to 90% of all items are still bought in a physical store. Steve Nordstrom spoke earlier to the crowd. His number is a little bit higher than most retailers. 26% of what Nordstrom sells is online. He said they might one day get to 50%. So that is more in line with what that survey shows.
All right, topic 3, Courtney. Whirlpool shares plunging for investors down 10%. They rolled out their earnings, but they also announced they're pulling out of Sears. From what I understand, a price fight causing the breakup. Who's breaking up with who?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. So Whirlpool said that in May, they sort of informed Sears they were no longer going to be a vendor. So telling Sears we're not going to sell you our Maytag, our KitchenAid, our Gen Air, our Whirlpool appliances. They just said they couldn't come to an agreement when it comes to the business terms of that deal. And Sears said it's because if they want to charge higher prices, we need to be able to charge low prices to stay competitive. So it's a little hard to say, but if you are in the market for a Whirlpool appliance, you're not going to be able to get it at Sears much longer. They're selling out of what they currently have now. And Brian, we know Sears has sort of been selling off a lot of its assets. Now, they didn't own Whirlpool, but this is just sort of one more check mark in that worrisome column for the retailer.
Courtney, thank you very much. Good to come.
Alrighty, coming up much more on this record-breaking rally at this hour. We'll ask also Representative Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey if any Democrats will get on board with tax reform. We'll talk about the state and local tax deduction and more with him. And is the Republican plan going to cause a $1.5 trillion problem for the economy? We'll be right back.
Dude, get out the way, man.
Even death can upgrade. Care for a taste?
I'm Contessa Brewer. Here's your CNBC News update for this hour. House Speaker Paul Ryan's calling on representatives to pass a tax cut bill by Thanksgiving. He held a news conference today publicly to push them to work on it. President Trump is urging lawmakers to approve such a measure by the announcing plans for what's expected to be the largest oil and gas lease sale ever held in the United States. It involves nearly 77 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico that would be open for drilling. The sale is scheduled for March. At the United Nations, Russia vetoed a U.S.-sponsored resolution to extend the work of inspectors looking to determine who's responsible for chemical weapons attacks in Syria. The Russian UN ambassador accused the United States of calling the vote to, quote, show up and dishonor Russia. And in Los Angeles, the Dodgers and the Houston Astros set to face off in what could be the hottest World Series game ever. And we don't mean like, oh, that's hot. We mean like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. Game 1 begins at 5:09 p.m. Pacific time. Forecast calls for a temperature between 95 and 97 degrees. That beats even what happened in Arizona. It was 94 degrees. That was the record up until then. Wow. CNBC News update at this hour. I'll send it back to you, Tyler.
Either Santa Ana wins. Thanks, Contessa. All right, so what will it take to get any Democrats on board with the tax reform plan? Joining us is Representative Josh Gottheimer, Democrat from New Jersey, co-chair of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you with us. I read in something you wrote that you said there's a lot to like about the ideas that have been quoted so far about tax reform. What are the ideas you like, and are they likable enough that you might even support it?
Well, I think we've got to get our tax rates down overall. Obviously, our corporate tax rate is uncompetitive globally. We can't have it that we're 10 or more points higher than the major OECD countries around the world. So I'm for that, and obviously I want to get rates down across the board. My concern is, of course, provisions like the state and local tax deduction, eliminating that, which would be a huge problem for states like mine. You know, I'm from New Jersey. It would end up being a tax hike, and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I'm a New Jersey resident, as are several of the people who work here, including Brian and others on the Senate. But do you think that this state and local tax, the elimination of the ability to deduct, is going to be in the final bill? And does it apply only to income taxes, or do you understand that it applies as well to property taxes?
Well, what I've heard is that they're trying to eliminate it for income and property, and there's a lot of negotiating going on, which is why I'm eager, like most people, to see the real details and get into it to see the impact on me.
And yeah.
So there's actually tax cuts for us.
You get why somebody who lives in a low tax state, though, thinks that they subsidize your constituents, right? Because it ends up being their tax bill that, you know, puts the bill to the federal government, while your people who live in your state are just paying for the state government.
Right, which is why actually I quickly jumped to the facts, which are, you know, in New Jersey where I live, we get back 33 cents on the dollar for every dollar we send to Washington, every federal tax dollar. We get back 33 cents. States like West Virginia get back $4.23 for every dollar. So as it is, we're a huge payer state, states like New Jersey, New York, New Connecticut, California. We're paying the bill for others. It's Jersey welfare payments for other states. So to actually add to that now is, you know, another 6% or $3,000 per family. It's just offensive, and it'll be uncompetitive for Jersey.
So the reason this comes up is because they got to figure out how to pay for this thing, right? So do you have any other ideas? Like we could get rid of the mortgage deduction or charity? What would you do?
This is exactly why I want to see the details. There are plenty of pay-fors there, and I'm eager to see them. You know, I don't think you can get the lobbyists to come out in force, and they're going to go after every single provision. But we have to actually see the details and make sure the pay-fors are there. I mean, there are a ton of shelters that you could eliminate, as you know, when you lower the corporate tax rates that are out there that encourage businesses to ship jobs overseas. Those are the ones that I'm really focused on, so we can get the rates down, but do it the right way. So we're ready. I just don't think it can be done on the backs of states like ours, and eliminating the state and local tax deduction is really a killer for us. And so I'm not for tax hikes. I want tax cuts.
So let's talk a little bit about business taxes and what could be a part of this legislation, and that is limiting the taxation, reducing taxation, so-called pass-through income for small businesses. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think this quickly gets into an issue where you got to make sure that what you do doesn't just favor bigger companies, but also gives relief to fast-growing small and medium-sized businesses, and which are incredibly important in the lifeblood of our country. This is where, you know, we've been talking round and round, you know, for months
months now at a very high level, 8-page documents. We need to get into the specifics, and that's where it requires, listen, I'm a fiscally more conservative. I want to sit at the table with Democrats and Republicans and actually get into the details. We've been asking for this for months, and there's got a bunch of Democrats like me who'd be willing to support the right tax reform. But we have to be in the conversation. We have to see the details. And this is where it's important to see how it's going to have an impact.
I guess we'll see the details on November 1. That's what they're now saying, or we're reporting that that could be the day that the GOP will release the details of the tax bill. Representative?
I'm ready and eager.
All right, fantastic. Billy, I hear you have to go vote. Go do it. Gotta go vote.
We're going to do that too. Okay, President Trump meeting GOP senators right now to talk taxes. As Republicans pursue reform, there's very little talk about actually cutting spending. John Harwood joins us now. He says that could create a $1.5 trillion cut. Hey, John.
Hey, Michelle, let's just look at the overall budget picture before we even get to tax reform. Right now, the CBO says the deficit this year is going to be about $487 billion. By 2027, it's going to be $1.4 trillion. Cumulatively, $9.4 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years. Why? Well, one of the biggest reasons is look at the roles of Social Security. 45 million people on them now. By 2027, that'll be 60 million. An increase of a third. By 2033, 77 million people will be on the rolls. That means the federal government needs more money to pay for that. Well, take a look at the Senate budget resolution. It allows for $1.5 trillion in higher deficits. Now, the advocates of the budget and the tax bill say that that won't actually add to the deficit because they're going to generate so much growth it'll offset that money. But that is highly speculative. And the increase in retirement benefits for baby boomers as they retire, that is a demographic certainty, and that's what people have to weigh. And in particular, it's the concern of Bob Corker, who's had this titanic fight with President Trump today. He says he won't vote for a tax bill that will add $1 to the deficit. We will see whether that concern ends up getting bigger, especially as you indicated in that interview with Josh Gottheimer, as all the pay-fors get jettisoned from this bill, whether it's border adjustment or the 401ks or state and local tax deduction, those are all being trimmed down. The cost is getting higher.
John Harwood. John, thank you very much. All right, let's get a check down on the markets as this really incredible rally continues. The Dow is up by more than 200 points right now. You can see that. And keep in mind, what's even more amazing about this is that IBM, Johnson & Johnson, and GE, they are down. In fact, IBM is down fairly considerably. So 3M, Caterpillar, and Boeing are really fueling the Dow right now in a big way. I mean, if IBM wasn't down, the Dow would probably be up about 300 points. Those are your laggards. Financials, as a group, the best performing sector right now. In fact, the Bank of America is at its highest level, guys, since 2008. Put this in your market pipe and smoke it, Tyler. Okay. There are now 11 Dow stocks, that's, by my math, just over 30%, which are up more than 25% just this year. That's incredible news. Not bad. Not bad at all. Very good.
And that 4%, Larry thinks it's up.
Yeah, I know. He's very negative about that. All right, coming up. How much more pain is ahead for GE investors? Shares sitting another in a row. We're going to dig into GE's biggest problems right now. But at that, share the Polaris story after a blowout quarter and coming up. What did that see in Scott watch? If people are really buying more ATVs and motorcycles just because the stock market is hot. Stick around to find out the answer.
Last second. Robot is online. Disable it. Enemy down. Last white spin. Black Ops at work. It's a beautiful thing. Raw aggression gets the win every time. float like a butterfly, punch like a freaking jackhammer.
Welcome back to Power Lunch. Home builders news recession high so far, and a bullish outlook from Pulte. That stock hitting a 10-year high as quarterly profits edged past estimates. The home builder remained upbeat on housing demand despite a slowdown due to hurricanes Harvey and Irma. CEO Ryan Marshall says demand remains robust in areas like Houston and Florida, which were, of course, hit particularly hard, guys. Back over to you.
All right, Dom, thank you very much. Record sales, improved profits, raised guidance. Data's pushing shares of off-road maker and snowmobile maker Polaris higher today. The stock back to 2-year highs. Here for a Power Lunch exclusive is the CEO of Polaris, Scott Blind. Scott, obviously a good quarter. The market is rewarding you as it has been all year. So how much, if at all, have you been able to figure out that these record stock market highs are causing people to go out and buy ATVs?
You know, Brian, obviously we're helped by the market. If you think about our customers, their 401k balances go up. They're likely to have more confidence to come out and buy a new side-by-side or ATV or motorcycle. But I really think the regulatory reform that we're seeing is starting to give confidence in our industries, and therefore the employees in those industries, which are our customers, are feeling more confident coming to the stores. Traffic was up in the third quarter, and we obviously benefited from that significantly.
We haven't talked a lot about the farm economy. I blame Tyler Matheson for that faux pas. We've been talking about the stock market mostly, Scott, but you are dependent on farming and the farm economy to a point. How is that part of the economy doing?
You know, if you look at ag and oil, which we kind of lump together sometimes, disparate industries, but both have a large impact. And it's not those industries per se, but it's the 3% of our overall sales. The ag market was up quite significantly in the third quarter for us, and oil was also those markets respond well for us. So that certainly helped us deliver on our 13% retail sales growth in North America in the third quarter.
Mr. Wine, the numbers, as Brian highlighted, were impressive, right? The sales up dramatically, and yet on your conference call, one of the first things you said this morning was, this was not a good quarter, just a better one. What does that mean? Why not?
Well, we have high expectations, and we know internally how hard the team is working and how many obstacles they're overcoming to make sure that we deliver on our commitments to the street, to our shareholders, and to our customers. And really what I'm trying to do is make sure everyone understands that the earnings power of this company is significant in the future, and we still have a lot of work to do to be as good as we believe we can be.
How important would tax reform be for you with the lower corporate taxes? What would it do for the bottom line?
Well, it would be significant for us. I mean, we're one of the few companies that typically pays 35%. We had some benefit in the third quarter, only paid 32%, and that gave us about 12 cents of earnings benefit. But, we are lobbying hard for tax reform, and not only because it will benefit us, we believe it will benefit our customers as well.
Get out the way.
And that's the thing, Scott, because the knock on tax reform, and rightly so, by the way, pharma kind of screws maybe the entire industry because they got a break, what was it, 15, 20 years ago, and instead of doing things like building plants, they paid dividends and buybacks, which didn't add to workers' salary. How do you know the tax reform will go into the employee's pocket? Maybe you'll open a new factory, you'll build more, so you can hire more and pay more.
Well, I think you can always bet on the come here a little bit, but if you look at Polaris as an example, when we saw the opportunity to sell more vehicles, we built a plant, it's been 100 people there, and that's what gets the economy moving. So I think if tax reform happens and people have confidence in their future sales, they'll make those investments here in North America and here in the United States. to give more people jobs and the opportunity to buy more products.
Scott won. We are going to leave it there. The stock is up nicely today on a pretty good, as Michelle said, just a better quarter, but stock up 50% this year. So thanks, Scott. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
Coming up in Street Talk, shares of Hasbro stocks hit very hard yesterday. Is there more downside to come, or was the sell-off overdone? One analyst take is coming up. And then speaking of overdone, we're going to ask the Street's top-rated Apple analyst if concerns about the new iPhones are overblown. Power lunch. We'll be right back.
Fucking people, dude. Move up. Stop sitting in corners.
Hostile UAV spotted.
They see me.
Hostile forces have disabled our robots. Robot systems are online. Be advised, hostile care package overhead.
Get the guy in the corner, please. Fuck. Well, we lost this one.
Infantry neutral.
What is going on with my connection now?
Spikes ready. Bring the pain.
Oh, the fucking robot people.
All right, time for Street Talk, our daily dive into the key, not the average one, but these are the keys Wall Street calls today.
First one is Hasbro. The toy maker stock overall fell nearly 9% yesterday. Today, it gets an upgrade from Barclays. Says, hey, now the valuation is finally reasonable. Analysts also boosting its rating to overweight. However, dropping its estimates and also the price target based on what the company said in its earnings announcement yesterday. Barclays cautions Hasbro could face further disruptions to the Toys R Us restructuring. They also think the future looks bright with the release of Frozen 2, Star Wars, Marvel movies in the near future to help drive sales.
All right, second stock is actually two connected stocks in one, Alon and Della. It's a double upgrade on two smaller cap refineries. Macquarie upgrades them to outperform from neutral on both names. They call Alon a hidden gem. They love the Big Spring refinery. Their target is 13, about 8% upside. They love Delac's focus on the Permian Basin of Texas to get the highest leverage to that region. By the way, they also own 82% of Alon's Big Spring refinery. See? It's all connected. Their target a little more bullish on Delac is 29, about 11% upside.
The third stock is Cheesecake Factory. Wells Fargo dropping its price target to 43 from 46, also cutting EPS for 2018. You can see the stock trading at 43 right now. The firm says it expects to fall short of consensus. The analyst says Cheesecake is still for the destination concept, but they expect mall traffic headwinds and also wage inflation pressure to continue into next year.
All these sort of middle market restaurant chains, Giant Equity, Applebee's, Quaker, which is Chili's, they're just struggling. Stock's down 30-40% this year. All right, your final stock is Party City. Boy, did I have a misconception when I walked into this place. It's actually a retailer. BMO Capital Markets upgraded to an outperform from a market perform. Stock down 17% in the past 6 months, but the analyst says that drop creates an opportunity. The stock has a good risk-reward profile. Channel checks indicate things may not be that bad. They've got a party on the upside. $16 target, that's about 30%, well, about 25% gain with today's gain.
Paper plates, glitter, napkins.
Not at all what I expected.
No.
Very disappointing.
All right, folks, General Electric stock now $22, down 25% over the past year. Is it time for GE to be ejected from the Dow? And the value of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum have been soaring, but there are still many big-name doubters. The founder of Ethereum will join us to tell us why those doubters are wrong. And we now await GOP senators to come out of their meeting, their luncheon with President Trump. Tax reform on the menu. We're all over it. Stay with us.
Team Deathmatch.
Man, too many people.
Enemy down.
Get out the way, people. Get out the way, get out the way. Come on. Get out the way. God damn it.
Smoke, check.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the second hour of Power Lunch. I'm Tyler Matheson. Let's see what's on the menu this hour. Does GE have to go? Has this dog of the Dow overstayed its welcome in the index? And could it be bow wow and out? And could it out could be the best thing that ever happened to the company and investors? But the companies that have been kicked out have gone on to better returns. Shiny, healthy Apple. Lots of negative reports, though, recently about demand for those new iPhones. Are those reports true? The number one Apple analyst on the street will give us his take. Plus, Bitcoin isn't competing with conventional assets like dollars and gold. Also, though, with other cryptocurrencies. Ahead, the co-founder of Bitcoin competitor Ethereum will join us at Power Lunch, Part 2. Starting now.
simply running out of records and hyperbole for the stock market run. Yeah, folks, it's another day that ends with a rise. Therefore, it's another stock market high. What does it mean to run? It's an earnings-driven rally. Strong results from 3M, Caterpillar, and Boeing all helping out. McDonald's delivering on sales. That's pushing that stock higher. GM moving higher. It reports to beat earnings for the 10th straight quarter. Can't all be good news. On the downside, Whirlpool is sinking on the back of earnings and saying that it is severing a 100-year relationship with Sears.
All right, let's dive deeper into what's moving the markets with all these huge earnings today. Bob Sonny, stand by for New York Stock Exchange. Hey, Bob.
Hello, Michelle. I just want to point out again this very large and unusual divergence between the Dow and the S&P 500. 60 and 70 basis points difference. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is when you're talking about the two big indexes that are out there. It's all because the Dow's price weighting. We have two stocks that are just moving things around dramatically. First, 3M. 3M had good numbers, raised their guidance 1%. I'm sorry, folks, you don't go up 7%. Just on a 1% raised guidance here. This is definitely looks like short covering. I know a lot of hedge funds are betting against some of the industrials on the idea that there'd be pricing pressure, and so far they've been wrong. Another one that had good volume, good pricing pressure, good pricing is Caterpillar. Raising your guidance 25%, that's a huge move up here. And again, 4 times normal volume in Caterpillar. This also looks like some people covered short as well. I saw this happen with a number of other industrials earlier last week. So Granger, another big industrial company, had a big move up on the same thing, a modest peak. Here's some positive comments. Huge volume on the day of its earnings. Same with Lennox, another big company. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning business, another big global industrial company. Look at that move up just a few days ago. Same situation. Modest positive comments and a modest beat. The other group I want to point out is the bank's 10-year yield, the highest level since April right now. Yield curve's not steepening dramatically, but we're hitting new highs once again in all the major banks. And guys, this is important because usually the week or two after the big earnings for the banks come out, they're still recovering. Usually you go down going into earnings. This has not happened this earnings season. These banks started going up almost immediately as we started reporting with companies like JP Morgan. Right now, the Dow's just near the highs for the day, 193 points. Guys, back to you.
Got it, Bob. Thank you. All right, what do you do with this record rally? Stay invested? Sell out? Randy Warren, Chief Investment Officer with Warren Financial, joins us now, along with Chris Zaccarelli, who's Chief Investment Officer with Cornerstone Financial Partners. Gentlemen, good to have you here. What do you say to somebody who maybe tunes in today and says, wow, this has been going on a long time. I'm getting nervous that this rally has just gone on too long. Should they stay in or should they get out?
I think they should stay in. I mean, essentially, this is what I call a grassroots rally. This is based on earnings. If you watch what's happening in the morning when companies are reporting their earnings, look at what Caterpillar did this morning, look at what 3M did this morning, look at what GM is doing. There's a lot of grassroots earnings that are building up the market and sending the indexes higher. So it's still a good idea to stay in, but maybe it's not for everyone, but I think it's good to stay in.
Chris, what do you think at this point?
No, I agree. I think the market's been doing really well. It's all been earnings-based, and there's definitely that global economic story that's happening around the world. So it's really a synchronized recovery across the board. I would be careful, though, within the market. You know, staying in the market's one thing, but, you know, watch out for utilities, watch out for consumer staples. Those are both relatively expensive. They don't have as good growth rates. So something like the financial or less, depending on where you look. That's a really good value. You've got a tailwind if interest rates continue to go higher, and I think there's a lot of opportunities within the market, not just in the market as a whole.
Randy, we had all these senators meeting today. What if we get that also? Does that add to the rally? Are we going to sell on the news, or is that baked in?
No, I think it really adds to the rally. I don't think that investors are really expecting much of anything out of Washington, D.C. This is really coming from earnings and coming up from the bottom. But Chris is absolutely right to reference the rest of the world, because for the first time in quite a few years, we're actually seeing growth in the rest of the world. And so we're actually shifting some money away from the U.S. market into international markets, into the emerging markets, to try to take advantage of that growth. Not to take anything away from the United States, though, because we're doing well also.
So, Chris, I just heard Randy say that if tax reform happens, it will add to the rally. Let me flip the supposition and ask you whether if tax reform doesn't happen or massive tax cuts.
Well, I think tax reform is a little bit priced in. It's mostly not. So I agree a lot with that statement that a lot of this rally has been earnings-based. It's not necessarily counting the tax cuts. I think if you do get tax cuts, small caps and mid caps are likely to rally a lot higher, and I think they'll outperform large caps. in this case, if you don't get tax reform at all, I do think the market gives back a little bit, call it a couple percent, maybe a little bit more. So I do think on the large cap space where we're looking at the S&P 500, I do think a little bit of tax reform is baked in, so there would be slight disappointment if that didn't happen.
Just to explain, why did small caps benefit relatively more than large caps?
Sure. Yep. Great question. So, small caps traditionally play the traditional marginal tax rate, so call it 35%. If you're able to lower tax rates for corporations, they'll disproportionately benefit because.
God damn it! Bullshit.
The national and their effective tax rate's closer to 26%.
Got it, guys. All right. Thanks for the ideas, Randy Warren and Chris Zaccarelli.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, you know this. GE, General Electric, has been just a very difficult run for its investors, underperforming the Dow for more than a decade now. And some debate, forming about whether or not GE should be kicked out of the index. It is, I believe, the oldest component in it. Michael Sansoli joining us now to talk more about this. Michael, it would seem impossible. I know nothing is impossible. This is the oldest component in the Dow. It's still a massive corporation. They've fallen on some difficult times from a shareholder perspective. Is there any real reason that GE honestly should get the boot?
I think it's premature to start talking about that for a lot of the reasons.
Move out the way, dude. Still in the spawn. Why are you aiming for it?
Obviously, if performance was your main standard for whether a stock should stay in the Dow, then you have a decent case that GE just is not up to that role. However, $200 billion, almost $200 billion market value right now still. Tremendous economic footprint. If you talk about exposure to the global infrastructure, capital goods, transportation, healthcare industry, $125 billion in revenue, it's really hard-pressed to replace GE with anything of significant scale, especially in the industrial space. You're going down to something like the Honeywell, which, by the way, is splitting in two and used to be in the Dow, to try to find a comparable exposure in terms of industrial stocks. Now, I do think there's something to be said for the idea that eventually, if GE continues to hive off businesses, if it continues to shrink and loses relevance in a lot of different markets, sure, then we can start talking about it. But to me, it's all about what would replace it, what's better, what's got a little more of an economic profile to replace it. There's really nothing on it.
I was only joking sort of semi yesterday, Mike, when I said we should replace GM with Tesla, Travelers with Berkshire Hathaway, and anything else with Bitcoin. And there's Dow 100,000 right there overnight. Just
you're welcome. The momentum index. Look, what's interesting about this is what are the big stocks that maybe the Dow committee is itching to get in there? Is it Amazon? I don't think they have the regular profitability that the Dow committee would like to see. You talk about a parent company of ours like Comcast, it's pretty big, but it's got that family control. So you always got kind of a give and take on what might be next to get in.
I might stick around as we continue our conversation with our next guest. He's throwing the towel on GE, downgrading the stock to underperform and saying we could see a dividend cut. Is Oppenheimer, senior industrial analyst. But what do you think here? We've been talking about whether GE can continue or will continue as a member of the Dow. Thumbs up, thumbs down on that.
Well, I evaluate the stock on its investment merits. I'm not really an expert on the components of the Dow, what should and shouldn't be in, but like you guys said, 190 billion market cap, a little premature for that discussion at probably the lowest deb in their fundamentals.
So there they are. They're right there in Boston, just around the corner from you where you are, Christopher. Let's talk about the dividend, which is something you do analyze. It has been for many, many years one of the reasons people buy GM.
I think they'll cut it. I mean, at GE, right. I think they'll cut it. Their free cash flow is going to be below the $8 billion current dividend payout for the next couple of years at least. And it's a 4.4% yield. That's an outlier. So it's more than a competitive yield, and it really is, they're having to fund it with a little incremental debt and asset sales. So it's not appropriate for the current cash generation.
Mike, some GE shareholders might be wishing that they put GE out of the Dow, because what happens historically when a stock leaves the Dow Jones Industrial Average?
It's a bit counterintuitive, but very often those stocks essentially outperform
after they're kicked out of the Dow. Now, the reason for that is, look, the people who make up the committee on who decides what's in the Dow are also susceptible to broad market sentiment, and usually when sentiment is at its ultimate low in a stock is often a time when it's already sold out and it's already going to come back. I'll just look at one example when there was some reshuffling. In 2013, Alcoa, Bank of America, Hewlett-Packard kicked out in favor of Goldman Sachs, Nike, and Visa. Of the new ones, Visa has done great. The other two have been laggards. And as a group, the ones that were kicked out have done better than the ones that entered.
I was going to ask Christopher, what are you waiting to hear from Mr. Flannery when he has his Investors Day in a couple of weeks? What do you want specifically to hear that might turn your opinion on this stock a little bit more to the favorable side?
Yeah, I'd say two or three things. One is clarification on the power segment, where between this year and next year, you're probably going to see over a 30% profit decline. And that's based on, probably some pricing pressure and overcapacity in the industry and lower utilization of power plants in the Western world. So the high margin services business isn't there right now. So just some clarity on what the mix is there going forward. And they didn't see this rapid downturn coming either, so that's a bit concerning. I think some lucid comments on that would be helpful. I think elsewhere they indicated $20 billion of revenue would be up for divestiture, and we have some idea what's likely in that respect. But the reallocation of those proceeds, whether that's to fund the pension plan or reduce debt, some of the low margin business, that might only be a dime of earnings, and they could reclaim that if it's allocated elegantly.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much. Christopher Glenn from Oppenheimer. Mike Santoli, thanks as well.
In D.C., President Trump meeting with Republican senators $1 tax reform plan, and the House already setting a date for a tax bill to be unveiled. Eamon Jabber is now at the latest. And Eamon, I'm sure you've circled your nobody circles calendars anymore. It's just kind of a figure of speech. For November 1st, you've got a reminder on your iPhone. How about that?
Yes, that's right. I've got a Twitter app or something. But yeah, the House is saying now that on November 1st we will see a House version of this bill, so that will be interesting. A lot of details to be unveiled after this budget gets passed, presumably up on Capitol Hill. We just saw the president arriving there on Capitol Hill. You see the live shot there. He's in the Senate policy lunch now. His arrival was a little bit unusual there with Mitch McConnell walking into the corridor. It was interrupted by a protester in an odd moment throwing Russian flags at the president. There you see them and shouting, "Trump is treason, Trump is treason." So the lunch did not get off to a good start necessarily. The president is there to pitch his tax reform proposal, and earlier today here at the White House, he gave us a sense of what his argument would be. Here's what the president said earlier today.
If we get this passed, which I really believe we will, I think we have to as a country, it's going to bring back, I would say, $4 trillion back into this country, which right now cannot come back. It's being spent in other countries. Money that wants to come back into the United States cannot come back, but under our plan, that money will flow back in. It'll be very quick, and it'll be very easy, and it's a lot of money.
So the president making that pitch now behind closed doors. I can tell you that the press pool who are gathered just outside the room where the president is meeting with Senate Republicans say that there was some applause audible in the hallway outside the room for the president. We'll see when he comes out. He may talk to the cameras there and give us a readout on sort of exactly how this went today and where they think things are going down the line. And of course, all of this taking place in the mix of the president feuding with certain prominent senators up on Capitol Hill in his own party. So that adds to the sort of political tenderness of the moment. So a lot of attention.
Wow, shoots me through the fucking thing.
Eamon, if they do come out and give us a rundown of how it went, we will carry that live. Thanks so much. All right, here's what's coming up on Power Lunch. The transports have been on a tear in 2017. What's behind the rally, and will the sector stay in overdrive? Power Lunch exclusive interview with the CEO of Ryder Systems is next. Plus, the #1 analyst on the street is here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to the new iPhone demand. And it's not just Bitcoin anymore. We're going to walk you through the growing alternatives in cryptocurrency. Yes, there's more than one, there's more than two. All that and much more coming up on Power Lunch.
Not today.
We lost A. incoming. Securing B. Networks neutralized. B secure. UAV above. Losing B. Losing B. Securing Alpha. Alpha secure. Losing Alpha. Friendly UAV inbound. Hostile UAV incoming.
Wow.
Losing Charlie. Friendly airstrike incoming. Enemy has Charlie. Hostile care package overhead. Guardian deployed. Securing Bravo. XxD inbound. Hostile hardened sentry in your AO.
Burnout.
Hostile hangar detected.
All right, time for more insight into the economy. And let's welcome in Robert Sanchez. He is the CEO of Ryder Systems, the single R. The stock down just a little bit today. Mr. Sanchez, thank you very much for joining us here on Power Lunch. Obviously, you guys have changed and evolved. A lot of people that don't know, you're not the, I'm going to rent a truck and move across the country company that you used to be. You're more logistics. You're more sort of top-level economy. From your vantage point, A, how is the American economy? You think it's as strong as the stock market reflects? And B, if you could get one thing done in Congress to benefit your company, what would it be?
Well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. I guess to answer your first question, the good news of what we're beginning to see here in our business is, so as you mentioned, it's not us renting trucks to individuals who are moving across the country. It's us renting trucks to businesses that need to move
Shoot
product.
the fucking guy, you fucking idiot. You're next to him.
For the last couple of years, we've seen it now begin to pick up. The third quarter was a relatively strong quarter for us in the truck rental business, which is very encouraging for us because it's typically a leading indicator of what's happening in the economy. As more product moving, therefore companies are coming and renting more trucks from us. To answer your second question on if there's one thing we could get done in Washington today, it would be tax reform. I think tax reform not only would help our company at Ryder, but more importantly would help all of our commercial customers. We do business with about 50,000 different companies, small to mid-sized companies, most of them privately owned. As those companies get more confidence in the economy and have more money to invest, they buy more products, they end up opening new operations, they end up needing more trucks and leasing and renting more trucks and buying more logistics support from us.
If you had to pay a lower tax rate, sir, what would you do with the money? Where would that money go? There's a lot of criticisms that, oh, these companies, they don't actually invest in employees or equipment or they don't hire more. What would you do with the money?
Right, a lot of our money, our capital really goes back into buying more trucks. So as we have more money and our customers have more money and need more trucks, we would invest that in more vehicles. We own over 230,000 commercial trucks. We own and maintain over 230,000 commercial trucks. And as the economy picks up, we go out and buy more of them. Obviously, that creates jobs as truck manufacturers build more trucks, and we put them in the economy to make money.
We're down in South Florida. Obviously, Florida went through terrible hurricanes. How have the hurricanes affected your business? And what do you see in those affected areas in terms of economic activity?
Yeah, obviously during the hurricane there was a bit of a slowdown, but the recovery effort after the hurricane certainly has created a need for more
transportation and more of our services. We expect that to continue certainly for the coming quarters. So we did see a rental pickup even inside, in addition to what we saw with the hurricanes, but the hurricane has actually been an additional boost. I would also like to mention, I want to thank also all of our truck drivers. There's 7,000 that work for Ryder. There's tens of thousands that sit behind the wheel of a Ryder truck. 3.5 million commercial truck drivers in the U.S. They do a phenomenal job every single day for us, bringing products that we use every day. I think all of us saw it firsthand during the hurricanes, as all those trucks rolled in and were bringing water and food and necessary supplies to Florida and Texas and Puerto Rico. It's those truck drivers, those 3.5 million professional truck drivers who really make that happen.
Literal lifesavers. We keep reading though that there's a big shortage of drivers. Are you seeing that? And what does a truck driver make these days? What do you have to pay them to get them to come on board?
Sure, there is a shortage of truck drivers, as we have an aging population of truck drivers. More are retiring that are coming into the industry, so that is a challenge that we have. The pay for truck drivers varies depending on the types of routes. It could be anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 up to six figures, depending on the types of routes that those drivers are driving.
Very quickly, I can't let you go without asking the question all the analysts are talking about, which is the ELD, electronic logging device. I don't want to get too wonky. It's going into effect next year. It's going to really change your company and the industry. What is that going to do for Ryder systems?
All that the ELD is going to do is level the playing field, I believe. It really forces all trucking companies to adhere to the law in terms of safety law, in terms of the number of hours that a driver can drive. So I think it will level the playing field for companies that certainly have, most of which have been adhering to the law. So I think overall it will be a good thing for the industry. It may make it more challenging for any of the smaller trucking companies that may not have been adhering to the law. But other than that, I think it'll level the playing field and really tighten up the market a little bit.
Well, Mr. Sanchez, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
New report out saying that Americans are re-embracing a type of loan that was very popular before the housing crisis. We're going to tell you what it means for the real estate market and how it could boost the big banks. Plus, Facebook testing a change to its news feed, which could mean disaster to publishers unless they pay up. It's straight ahead on Power Lunch.
Securing A.
What pussies, dude. They sit around fucking walls and shit.
Guardian deploy. Be advised, hostile XxLUCIFERxX spotted. Be advised, hostile spotted. Round zero. Try to release myself. KIA. Hostile UAV above. Profit. Hostile XxLUCIFERxX AO. Alpha secure. UAV. Hostile care package overhead. Be advised, hostile UAV incoming. Hostile Guardian spotted.
Ruin down.
Mission failed. New assignments incoming.
That sucked. You Fobbits better step up.
Let's listen now to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
The administration hasn't gotten nearly enough credit for.
But I would highlight several things that I think will be front and center going down the end of this session. Obviously, tax reform, we're hopeful the House will tomorrow pass the budget that will open the door to begin the process of tax reform in the Ways and Means and Finance Committee. We're going to be confirming a number of judges, beginning with a couple of district judges that I filed cloture on yesterday. And the president also talked about his upcoming announcement on opioids. You know, we have a national epidemic of historic proportion. And the administration has correctly seized on this issue as something that's important to the American people. We need to get a handle on this as best we can. And the president will be talking about that. Excuse me. And the president will be talking about that later in the week.
All right, we're going to break away from that as our audio was a little bit disrupted there as the GOP leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, sort of gives a playback of what was an interesting, obvious luncheon on Capitol Hill where the president was gathering with Republican leaders. We're going to take a quick break and come back in just a moment.
Hostile hellstorm overhead. Enemy has ground. Be advised, hostile UAV. Dropped. Losing A. Securing B. We're being dominated. Go on the offensive. Bravo secure. Losing B. UAV in my AO. Securing A. Into terms. We're being dominated. Secure. Hostile UAV above. Alpha lockdown. EKIA. Losing C. Hostile care package overhead. Enemy took Charlie. Be advised, hostile care package overhead. Dropped. Be advised, hostile sentry spotted.
That's the entry up top right.
Oh no, that fucking sick.
Whoever's upstairs are coming down the stairs on you.
Losing Alpha. B secure. We lost A. Losing B. Hostile Guardian in your AO. Securing A. We're being dominated. Go on the aggression. Be advised, hostile UAV incoming. A locked down. Midway, UAV fuel check complete. Be advised, hostile care package overhead.
Hostiles have destroyed their UAV.
Spikes ready. Bring the pain.
Hey. All right, we got that audio problem fixed. Senator Roy Blunt's giving analysis.
Structure that would have raised utility bills, the so-called clean power rule, the waters of the U.S. that would have required the EPA to be involved in so much of the economy, and these were huge overreaches, a step back from that. And on taxes, the president said in his two principal observations, what our members are saying on the floor and in all of their for working individuals and hardworking families. At the other end of the spectrum, it's about creating opportunities for our country to be more competitive so that the jobs people have are better than the jobs available now. Not very complicated. If we stay with those two principles, we'll see this economy grow, we'll see families and individuals
individuals who work hard for a living benefit from it, and that's clearly where the president is and where the Republicans in the Senate are.
Over 1.7 million jobs have been created in this country since last November. That's what the president talked about. And I think we witnessed great enthusiasm for tax relief to American families to help make sure that people are able to keep more of their own dollars in their own pockets. 25% of the people in this country don't have emergency access to $100. Economists like Kevin Hassett have talked about the fact that tax reform, the work that we are doing, would give $4,000 in new average income to the average middle-class family in this country. This weekend, for the first time in 25 years, we witnessed a shutout of the Denver Broncos. But it's been longer than that since this country witnessed tax reform. 31 years ago. In 1986, talked about there was number one movie in the box office. In 1986, Mitch McConnell was rocking out to Walk Like an Egyptian. In 1986, IBM unveiled its very first laptop, the PC convertible, that weighed 13 pounds. And we're still dealing with that 1986 tax. So today, we can do better. We can put money in the American people's pockets. We can grow this economy.
I don't have any observation about that. We're here to try to accomplish things for the American people. We're all on the same page on the issues that I've mentioned, and of course, front and center is comprehensive tax reform, as my colleagues have described. Try to get the country going again and growing again, and that's what we're going to work on. Yeah. You guys were hollering so loud, frankly, I didn't even notice it. We didn't comment on it. We just walked on into my office.
Did the president, he didn't say any more about it after your party behind tax reform, when the president and top Republicans continue to have these fights, do these fights hurt your agenda?
If there's anything all Republicans think are important to the country and to our party, it's comprehensive tax reform. The issue itself brings about great unity among our members. And so we're concentrating on the agenda that we have for the American people. The president shares that agenda, is going to do a good job, I think, promoting that agenda. And we intend to achieve what we're set out to achieve before the end of the year.
Bob Corker, George Bush, these are not backbenchers. At what point do you